Howdy y'all! Welcome to Adventures with Kendall. Today's episode is going to be about the history of the Transcontinental Railroad. Now the majority of Season 6 is going to be exploring the history and the locations along the Central Pacific. Today's episode is just an overall look at the whole Transcontinental Railroad story. And I can't wait to take you to see this wonderful history. So let's get going and learn about the Transcontinental Railroad. Ever since the founding of the United States on July 4th, 1776, there has always been a need to head westward to the Pacific coast. And in 1847, Dr. Hartwell Carver had a proposal to charter a railroad from Lake Michigan to the Pacific Ocean. Now his route proposal was not the only one. There have been three: a southern route that went through Texas, New Mexico territory and connecting with Los Angeles, a central route following the Platte River in Nebraska and through the South Pass in Wyoming, and a northern one that went through Montana and Aragorn territories. Eventually, the central route was chosen by President Abraham Lincoln, with the terminus being Omaha, Nebraska. The reason being was that 7 railroads can transfer mail and goods to the Union Pacific bound for the west. Lincoln also suggested that the track gauge would be 4 feet 8.5 inches, which is the standard gauge of American railroads. This recommendation will later force railroads in the South to be rebuilt to this gauge. Soon, the Pacific Railroad Act was signed in 1862, and then again in 1864 during the Civil War. After the Civil War ended in 1865, construction will officially begin, with the Union Pacific being built west of Omaha, Nebraska, and the Central Pacific building east from Sacramento, California. The Central Pacific was operated by the Associates: Edwin B. Crocker, Collis Potter Huntington, Leland Stanford, Charles Crocker, and Mark Hopkins. Starting in Old Sacramento, the Central Pacific began its construction in 1863. The majority of the heavy work on the Central Pacific, which includes track laying and digging out tunnels, was done by Chinese laborers. Part of the railroad's construction would follow the Overland Telegraph Company's wires that operated between Fort Churchill, Nevada to Salt Lake City, Utah. This cable line was established in 1861. And in total of track miles, the Central Pacific laid 690 miles of it from Sacramento to Promontory Summit. There was also an additional 132 miles from the nearby Western Pacific from Sacramento to the San Francisco Bay. Meanwhile, the Union Pacific was making great progress through the Midwest and into the Weber Canyon of Utah. In total, they've laid 1,085 miles of track to Promontory Summit. Finally, on May 10, 1869, the Transcontinental Railroad was completed with the driving of the last spikes at Promontory Summit, Utah. 4 of these spikes will be hammered into this beautiful laurel wood tie. A silver spike from Nevada, a gold and silver spike from Arizona, and 2 beautiful golden spikes, like this one, on display here at the California State Railroad Museum. With the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, people can now travel from either the Atlantic to the Pacific or vice versa, and do it in 8 days. It also connected California cities like San Francisco and Sacramento with the rest of the United States. Finally, in 1883, the railroads will establish railway time, which divided the country into 4 segments within an hour of each other. This will become the groundwork for standardized time throughout the United States. As you can see, the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad had changed the United States into what it is today. In fact, it was the moon landing of the 19th century. And thanks to this technological achievement, the United States can grow into what it is today. Anyway, the rest of Season 9 is dedicated to the construction of the Central Pacific as we head from Sacramento to Promontory Summit, Utah. So get ready and get on board the Central Pacific Railroad. I hope you had a great history lesson about the Transcontinental Railroad story. It's so much fun to learn about this, and I can't wait to get into extra detail from here on out. It'll be a blast to learn about the history of the Central Pacific Railroad from Sacramento to Promontory Summit, Utah. I hope you're ready for next week because we're going to see a lot of interesting things in Old Sacramento. And more particularly, we're going to hang out at the California State Rail Museum. And until then, if you have a location for us to go on, comment or email down below. We would love to see your suggestions. And also subscribe and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We would love to see your faces. Well, that's all the time we have here on Adventures of Kendall. See you later, folks, and may your gifts bless the world.